You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
So let's dive in. I shot you a couple questions. It's weird how the algorithm works, and you get pushed information and you get to kind of see people, and your stuff got pushed. And I think it was an interview with Stacy Sims.
Yeah,
and
probably.
And some podcasts that you did with, was it Brooke Burke?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those guys kind of pushed my way, and I was like, oh man, let's reach out and get her on the podcast. I'm always fascinated by, people not only in this training space, but when they also kind of figure out their niche, and like that over 40 pre-menopause deal is such a massive market and such an interesting one. And I feel like women feel so kind of lost in this time. Like what I did when I was younger didn't necessarily work, and how do I kind of navigate this? And I think it's pretty interesting, and especially for me as a guy, like something I don't deal with. But I'm always fascinated. I do have a wife and I have daughters, so it's always something that's kind of prevalent and something I should educate myself about.
Oh yeah, it's the hot topic as of late, which brings big pros and cons to the space. So it's been really interesting to watch it evolve over the last 5 years since I've been in it, 4.5 years.
How did you get involved in it? I mean, obviously it's the demographic that you fit into, but I mean, were you working as a coach or trainer? I mean, how does it did, and then how did this morph into it?
No, it's kind of bananas. So I was always active growing up in high school, like athlete, all the things. So I carried that over into university, and then just out, once I got on with my life, it was always something that was easy for me to keep up. So I was always really active. I moved to Boulder in my mid-20s and 100% dove into the triathlon cycling community. I kind of feel like you have to at some point if you live in Boulder. It's just par for the course. So I kind of jumped into triathlons, ended up hiring a coach, and did that for about 12 years. And I was obviously age group at this time. I was having young kids, but I was really competitive and I was all in. So I did that for about 12 years. Meanwhile, I'm teaching Pilates on the side, and just kind of always had a coach to tell me. So I was very familiar, but I didn't even have like a personal training cert or anything like that. But I was in New Jersey, and I did my last Ironman, like 70.3. So I did my last half Ironman in Chattanooga, which I didn't know was the last at the time. I was 41 and ended up just having like this knee issue that turned into hamstring, then no one really knew, and ended up having, like 9 months later, a massive knee surgery that required 6 weeks of non-weight bearing, pretty much just like on crutches, can't touch down on this leg. And for someone that had just recently come off of a 70.3, that was like a death sentence. For 6 weeks, you get to sit in bed and everyone's giving me all of these Netflix, documentaries and series to watch. I watched nothing. So I ended up going down this rabbit hole of personal training and strength training, because I've kind of done a little bit in Ironman, but like it was the first thing to drop from my week when I had 12 hours of swim, bike, run. So I just never really appreciated it until I had this major injury. And the physician was very clear. He said, how much do you like running? Because whatever quality of life you can have, but you're going to need a knee replacement sooner than later if you're keeping up with this much work. And I was like, no, I'm happy being on the bike. If I can run a few miles, that's fine. I don't have to do 13 or more. So I literally spent every day of those 6 weeks getting my certification for personal trainer. And then I all like just dove into all of this continuing education. Then 2020 happened and we ended up moving back to Boulder, and I started my Instagram. And honestly, like, I was the TRX girl, and it was the only thing that people had access to that they could get. Gyms were shut down. You couldn't buy equipment, but TRXs were still pretty available. And so I started doing these TRX just workouts on Instagram, and I got like 30,000 followers pretty fast from that. Because nobody had anything else to do, honestly. I mean, everyone's just surfing Instagram and everything.
And drinking.
So I kind of, yeah.
And getting hammered.
Drinking.
Yeah.
so there's that.
Yeah.
But we, so anyways, long story short, I kind of started just posting because I had the time. I finally had the time to do it. But after I started taking these courses from what became a mentor of mine with a exercise physiologist down in Australia, of all places. And I took a couple of his courses and he was brilliant. And I just got up the guts and I was like, hey, do you want to do a course with me? Like, I feel like we should do this. I'd taken this fat loss course from him. And I was like, I feel like midlife women need to know this. Not everything changes in midlife, but everything is being sold to these women. So before perimenopause and menopause was even talked about, I was just like, well, I want to work with women my age, in their 40s, late 30s, whatever, that are kind of going through the same thing as me. And I want to build a community around it. And I want to give them the education of what matters and what they're going through, because I'm going through the same thing. So I kind of started out there. I have no idea how I even got up the guts to start my app. Like, I honestly don't even remember. All of a sudden I just had an app, and I thought it would just be kind of like a side hustle, like pocket change, and I do a little work and, no big deal. And it started building. So I started dropping some workouts in there and some strength training programs. Fast forward, that was in late 2021, early 2022. And then in late 2023, I had interviewed Stacy, and I'd interviewed her before. And this was when Instagram lives were still really big. This was like my third Instagram live with her. And by this time I was getting a little bit of traction, a little bit, but it's still just like a slow build, earning your name, or like getting in the space. And I was being asked at the time, do you have a program of what Stacy Sims would recommend? And so I got off this Instagram live, and a couple weeks later, I just emailed her and I said, hey, I don't know if you're getting hit up all the time, but I'm getting hit up. I have an app. I'll do all of the heavy lifting. Like, I'll do the marketing, and I have the videos, and I have the app and everything. And would you want to do this program with me? Thinking for sure she would say no. And she said yes. And 7 weeks later, I was down in New Zealand writing this program with her. And then we launched our first 2 Power Happens programs in March of 2024. And I will say that decision of asking her completely changed the trajectory of my course, of what I thought I was going to do in the fitness space. Really catapulted me into another, I don't know, a massive mark. It was like overnight success, but with that came all of the grief, pain, highs and lows of entrepreneurship, where you're just like, shit, I'm drowning here. I've got to hire a bunch of people, and I don't even know what's happening. I didn't sleep for months. I mean, it was great and it was terrible at the same time. So that is kind of how I got into the space. And then since then, I've really tried to connect with the thought leaders in the space for female health and nutrition and everything. So I have since kind of revamped my courses, where I now reach out and I usually mix up my experts, because there's a lot of different, I think all of the women that I hire, or men, are saying the same thing, but sometimes it's a little bit different. And
Sure.
so I like to have some variety of, well, let's break this down and see what this person studied nutrient timing. She's the right person to talk about this. And this person specializes in hormones as a physician. So she'll talk about this. And so it really has allowed me to bring cutting edge education to an audience of women that are just like, I don't know what to do. One day I'm intermittent fasting. The next I'm doing keto. The next I can only lift heavy. The next day I should only do cardio. It's a lot.
This episode of Power Athlete Radio is brought to you by the Business of Strength. Imagine making this your strongest business year yet, with more revenue, better systems, and a gym that practically runs itself. Sounds like a dream. But that's exactly what the Strongest Year Project delivers. It's a 12-month mastermind for gym owners, packed with one-on-one coaching, real-world systems, bi-weekly calls, and a roadmap to transfer your business from inside and out, just like they did at Varsity House Gym. Ready to stop guessing and start growing? Go to businessofstrength.com/attend and join the Strongest Year Project today. We interrupt this episode with a shameless self-promotion. Are you struggling to balance life and training? Let me introduce you to Grindstone. Punch the clock in the face with our most flexible training program designed to fit around external stresses. Perfect for the boardroom warriors, parents, students, and athletes looking to train while life has your axe to the grindstone. Claim a 7-day free trial by heading to powerathletehq.com/grindstone today. Now, back to the show. No, and the big issue with a lot of women too is it's so fear-based. And, I think that they get a lot of bad information. I mean, like, I don't recommend women fast. Like, I've read all the fasting stuff and it's like, just aren't very good outcomes for women. And then I remember the big push towards keto and I'm like, just the outcomes weren't that good. I mean, I think, men are just by nature, just more durable. I mean, it's just the fact that we can't have children. And if you look at like the way that, New Jersey's an interesting one. We had a cancer charity. This is wild. But so for the last 13 years, we had a charity that raised money for neuroblastoma. And it was in the name of a little boy named Wade DeBrune, who's actually from New Jersey. And as we were going through the amount of pollutants and problems and cancers associated with living in New Jersey is exponential compared to any other state. And when they look at how this stuff environmentally affects people, it really affects women. And that's how they study it. Just for the fact that men we're still pretty much cavemen. We can eat a bowl of termites and still be fine. But women are much more sensitive and just more impacted by a lot of this stuff. And it's pretty scary. So I know this is having, daughters and a wife and dealing with this. My wife went through cancer and just being able to look at that. And she's actually from New Jersey. So
bless.
Yeah. I'm the fact that this is a real deal, but it's, and there's just so much conflicting information. It's, if you listen to the guy stuff, people are pretty much, even though everybody's trying to couch it as unique information, it's still pretty basic. If you lift heavy weights and you get some aerobic base and eat some protein, you're usually going to be pretty far out. So, I heard you on a few podcasts talk about how women over 30 are doing everything right, but not seeing results. Why is that? Is it just that the information, or is there something that's not couched in that audience that necessarily is kind of failing women?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say I like to say that most women come in and they have 75 to 80% of the puzzle together. Most of them are doing a lot of the things. It's just kind of tweaking some of the things to get them to get results. And I had a client that came to me a year and a half ago, and same story that I would get all the time, but I'm just going to highlight her. Her name's Tammy. I've had her on my podcast. I've had her in my groups, and she came to me and was just like, I don't recognize myself. I've gained 25 pounds in a short amount of time. I'm a distance runner. I'm doing all the things. I've read all the books. And honestly, when somebody comes to me like this, I'm kind of like, well, I hope I can help you. If you're really doing everything, I don't know if I'm going to be able to change the needle, but I'm willing to try. And so I took her on, and sure enough, she was eating 100% clean, barely drinking, exercising every day. But what I noticed very quickly was she told me what she had in her smoothie, which was all great stuff. But I was like, have you ever put that into like a fitness tracker? Because she's like, I'm not eating that much and all of the things. And she put it in and she's like, Hailey, that's 700 calories for breakfast. Like I thought it was 350. So it was these really small things that were actually big. Number one, educating yourself on the food that you're eating, because this is a common theme and it's not for everyone, but the majority of women that come in my groups that get results, it's these small things. It's like, I didn't even know that I had to count olive oil or whatever it is, that are big calorie bombs that you don't even know. I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to count calories, but for this situation, dialing in her nutrition again for somebody that was eating healthy, to get the scale and the physique to start changing more or less, dropping some body fat and really getting her into a progressive strength program. And I think those are two of the big dial movers. Is every day, I've now had 92,000 women download my app and try a program with me in the last like 2.5 years. And during that time, so many women come in and when I ask them, okay, what level are you? And they say, oh, well, I'm for sure an intermediate. Like I've done Orange Theory classes and I've, done some less meals at the gym. And
so
I'm
you're
like,
a beginner.
I don't know. I'm going to say this super lovingly, and it's not trying to hold you back. It's trying to make sure you get in the right program so you don't get injured.
Sure.
But under heavy load, as you would know, it's a different story. Like you don't get to skip ahead.
No.
You don't. And you would know this. I mean, I've trained everyone from celebrities to even the celebrities that you would think they don't get to skip the muscle growing part naturally. And that's hard. And that is, I think, the biggest piece of the puzzle is finding out where are you really, so that you don't have these tendinopathies that hold you back, or so that you can really progress and put on the muscle. Because you're not going to put on the muscle if you're bopping around. I am a fan of every kind of fitness. So if you're doing less meals and that's working for you and you're happy, great. But if you are wondering, hey, I really want to put on muscle, I'm not putting on muscle, I'm not changing my physique, you have to do something more progressive and tailored and that has overload. And so that's the biggest thing. I think that people come in and they say, oh, but can I do my whatever class? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have, the instructor tells you what to do when you go into a class like that. So you can't overload it the next week because it's probably always different. And there's limited things that you can do in a class setting. That is my biggest piece. If you have access to get into the gym, please get into the gym. And the more you're there, the more comfortable you'll get. And the more you're going to get the better results that are going to come if you do a progressive program. Yeah.
I mean, progressive overload is really the gold standard. But the problem is most people don't really understand it, and they don't understand, more importantly, how to track it. So, I mean, like my deal is every time you walk in the gym, it's either a rep or you got to add weight to the bar. And if I'm not getting stronger, I'm not really putting on muscle. And I think explaining that to, men, I think makes sense. But when you try to explain it to women, you're like, so wait a minute, I'm not getting stronger. I'm like, have you added a rep? Have you gotten stronger? If you keep lifting those same weights over and over again, the law of acclimation appeals, and it just, it's kind of a fool's errand. With the nutrition, I was laughing because so I don't do nutrition stuff anymore. And the reason I don't do it is I had a guy hire me for coaching, and he wanted me to help him with his nutrition. And the guy was showing me these food logs that were absolutely perfect. To the point where I was looking at them and I'm like, this doesn't equate this. You're still fat. You shouldn't be fat eating this. And you've been eating this for a while. And so we went through and I was drilling down. I was like, what is this? What's this coffee stuff? What do you put in the coffee? Do you drink it black? He's like, no, I put this 2 tablespoons of MCT oil, and I put a half a stick of butter. And I was like, oh shit. And he's like, oh yeah, it's bulletproof coffee, but I read that if I drink it in a fasted state, like waking up in the morning, those calories don't count. And I was like, what fucking idiot said that? And he's like, oh, Dave Ashbury. I'm like, that guy's a fucking idiot. And anybody that says that calories don't matter is a moron. And that was one of his lines that like, oh, if you drink this bulletproof coffee, it does like these calories just to like negate because of fasting. And I was like, oh my God. And it turned out he was consuming about an extra 1,500 calories a day that he wasn't equating for.
Yeah.
And then wondered why he wasn't reaching his goals and like had these amazing food logs. And then I was like, wait a minute, how many of these are you drinking? He's like, oh, like 2 to 3. And I'm like, so you're,
well, there you go.
So you're talking probably an extra 2,000 to 3,000 calories a day. And I mean, like, so you're talking about,
there you go.
Yeah. I'm like, a pound and a half I'm like at that point I was like, I'm not doing nutrition anymore. I'm just going to help athletes be better versions of themselves. I can't do this nutrition. I just started farming it out at that point. Just for the fact that I'm like, man, this is like beating. Well, I mean, food is like a religion. And that is, I mean, it's as much as a religion as I've ever seen. I mean, you listen to people battle between, carnivore and vegan and this. I mean, you might as well be Christians, Muslims, and, any other religion that wants to battle. I mean, the warrior and the knives that people pull out for nutrition are just insane to me. And I've always subscribed to like what I call the least non-crazy person form of nutrition is just eat a balanced diet. Look at like total caloric load, make sure you get your protein backfilled with carbohydrates and fats and, something pretty close to a paleo diet will usually get you pretty close. And then if you got to dial it in and you want to get, super lean or put on muscle or, some of these other things, you're going to have to look at a whole bunch of other levers to pull. And, if I had like many years ago when I was playing for the Eagles, we one of the guys that was our tight end somehow met these Russian jewelers. Right. And he's like, hey, I met these Russian jewelers. I think he was going to buy his wife like a watch. And so he took us over to this jewelry spot because they wanted to meet us. So potentially, who knows, we get some jewelry or not. And so I went over there and these guys invited us out to dinner. And we went to this Russian spot in Philly that was pretty wild. They brought a lot of food. It was like this meal must have lasted 4 hours. But the interesting thing that I noticed is the Russians, when they put the food down, only ate a little bit. I finally asked the guy, because I was like, by the third course, I was stuffed. And he said, the difference between Americans is you guys always eat one bite full. The Russians eat one bite hungry. That's why we're not fat. So that was one of the funny lessons I laughed in life. And I was like, it makes sense. So that idea of like eating one bite hungry, like there's always that, like you get to that point where you're eating and like, whether or not you weigh and measure your food, I think everybody should, just for the fact that it gives you an idea of how much you're eating. But there's also a good indicator of like, you put the food down and you get to a point where you're like, this one more bite is probably, I should err on the side of like one bite less than one bite full. It seemed to work pretty well.
That's easy too. Can't just plain and simple.
Yeah. And it's the other one is I was on Julian Leinhart Julian Leinhart's podcast or Judd Leinhart. And he talked about dry, crunchy carbs being everybody's weakness. And I was like, yeah, I mean, if we go out for Mexican food and you put chips in front of me, I'm going to eat the basket. So when I see him coming, I just wave the dude off. I'm like, just take those things away because I have no ability to say no. So so dry, crunchy carbs. With your training programs, and like you said, like 92,000 women have downloaded your app. As you get into that, are they set up on tracks like body composition, like kind of specific in a way, or is it just like make everybody the best version of themselves?
No, I wish I could do that, but it's two. I have it in two ways. So if you come into my app, most of the time, you're really either buying into a strength training program, and you can do that from one of many of them, or you're coming in through a group course. And most people do both at some point, but the courses are open, close, so they're not available all of the time, and they'll run periodically throughout the year. And that's where I do all of the education. So some people want to come in and they are like, I don't care. I just want a program. Just tell me what to do, upload it to the app, and I'm going to go do it. And other people want to know everything about this midlife space and what they're going through. And they want to be able to talk to these experts that they probably wouldn't be able to talk to. And so that way, I mean, I have coaches that will work one-on-one with someone where they do go over body fat percent. I mean, all of the metrics, but most people in a group setting where it's much more general than that.
So as you had this many amount of people, like what are the patterns that you see over and over again?
Well, I kind of already mentioned it, but that by far is choosing the wrong program, I would say, or getting in too above your head and not really knowing that you're above your head. So we know
how
that
do you
in
fix
midlife,
that though? But like, I mean, like, because here's the problem. Like, you know, they're at an arm's length, right? They're downloading the app. Like, how do they, like, this is the hard part too. Like, very few people are honest with themselves about really their exposure to this type of stuff. So, I mean, the way I do it is like, hey, you might have been training for 20 years, but have you actually done this form of training that involves putting a heavy bar on your back or a heavy bar in your hands? So I wonder for, you know, you navigating it, like when women pick the wrong program, how do you give them that 180 to kind of push them back and still keep them as clients?
Well, I try to do a lot of education. So when they first come into the app, there is, or on my website, there's an article that says beginner, intermediate, advanced. What level are you? And it has some guidelines for women there to choose. And then they get routed into whatever programs, like these are the beginner programs. If you match this definition, which is hard. It is the hard thing of online business is I'm not seeing these people in person. And so you really have to just educate through social channels and through emails and through podcasts and blogs and things like that. But I want to say if there's one thing that I want to be known for and that I would die on a hill for, I would preach that every woman, and this is the piece that's getting missed, needs to do a foundation phase of training. So I love that the message is getting out there. I partner with Dr. Vonda Wright too for a program who's really big in the space. And I love that women are getting told to lift heavy because it's something that they'd never heard before. Even 5 years ago, we weren't talking about this. Now everyone's getting it, but then they come into me and they're like, put me in the program, like put me in. I just bought the beginner program because I've never lifted weights, but why do I have 15 reps in there and not 4? So that is the hardest part, is really trying to align that. And I've seen it all. And I try to say, listen, I promise if you try to shortcut this, in 3 months, you're going to be in the Facebook group saying that you have a tendinopathy that could have been prevented.
Yeah.
100%. We're already fighting this decline of estrogen, which is an anti-inflammatory. So these tendinopathies creep up more in women in midlife because of the decline of estrogen. So we already have that fight where that's already going against us, which we can't control. Now we can choose to take hormone therapy or not, but not diving too much into that. We have this issue that is presented at midlife that wasn't presented for 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds. Can you take like a little bit deeper, like into like what, I mean, as women go through menopause and they I think it's called like a perimenopause, or is it the kind of the premenopause? Like, yeah.
Is it just the declining of estrogen, or is there other hormones in play, like, you know, cortisol, testosterone? How do all those kind of, like, what does that cascading effect look like?
Yeah, all of the hormones are being changed, but primarily the 3 big ones: progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. But the estrogen is really the anti-inflammatory. All of them come into play for different reasons, but it is like adult puberty, for lack of a better word. So it's just like your hormones are going like this, and it is honestly so. It's confusing. It's frustrating. It's almost like the women that get on the other side post-menopause, they're like, it's much better here. At least you're solid. At least you're kind of flatlined, where in this space for 6 to 8 years before, it's just like these shifts, these highs and lows. And 1 minute you're crying, and then you have brain fog, and you lose what you're what you're thinking mid-sentence and what you're saying. And there's all of these like joint pain and things like that for sure happen with men too, as far as like joint pain as you age. Like there's this big kind of dispute of whether there's sex differences or not. And obviously we know there are sex differences with hormones, but these things hit women harder because of the fluctuation in hormones, which then puts us at risk of more bone loss post-menopause. So the 2 years leading up to the final 1 year that you haven't had a period, when you're officially menopausal, post-menopause, this is where you live the rest of your life. The 2 years before, the 2 years and then maybe 1 to 2 years after, the bone loss can be catastrophic. If you are not lifting, if you're not eating a lot, if you're not eating protein, and you're just trying to do this like cardio bunny life where you're just not fueling yourself and not protecting your bones. So it's muscle 100%. Like we are losing more muscle post-menopause, but also the bone. And I think the bone is getting more of the spotlight now, but it is more alarming than even the muscle loss, because you can still find a bunch of really thin women that are not lifting weights, that may or may not be on a GLP-1 or may just be really thin. But if they're under eating and they're over exercising and there isn't strength training and there isn't protein there, the body is going to pull where it needs to pull, which is going to pull from some fat, if they have, like, for sure, some fat, but some muscle and some bone. And I don't think that every female knows that it's pulling from their bone too. And so that's a conversation of just another reason to get strong across the board and to lift weights and to have this really strong, healthy, independent lifestyle, because what we're doing now is going to affect us when we're 90. And we've seen grandparents, I'm sure, or loved ones that have been really, really frail for years before they pass. And it's heartbreaking to watch. They didn't have the education. We have it all now. Our grandparents weren't taught to lift weights at all. They weren't taught that we needed to eat all of this protein. So even though it's this convoluted space with all these different voices and, experts maybe fighting against each other about this or that, we have all of the information. And the big rocks are lift, fuel your body, have protein, and don't always try to be on a diet 24/7.
If you were to go back in time, and I this is something that I'm dealing with, I have 14-year-old girls. So when I was growing up, and I'm sure we're about a similar age, all the girls from about the age of 14 on were on some form of birth control. I remember that was the idea of control the period, go on birth control. And that was just kind of how they treated everything. And now we've realized the problems with putting, young girls on birth control and a lot of the issues that are associated with it. Do you feel that some of the issues that we're seeing today with women going through menopause that you're seeing for 40 and 50-year-old women stem from maybe taking birth control for long periods of time right up until the point where they wanted to get pregnant?
I would say, honestly, I feel like that is probably out of my lane a little bit. There's very mixed data, and I haven't kept up on as much of the oral contraceptive, mainly because my women are phasing out of it. So that's a question that I would say I have my own thoughts, but I'm not sure that it's, I don't want to say anything that's not evidence-based.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to punt on that one, it just seems to me that the fact that because for men, we deal with a lot of guys that, are interested in hormone replacement, and I get emails and do consults for guys. And my biggest thing for them is if you want to go on some form of hormone replacement, why don't we try to get your body fat down and get you a little healthier first so we can actually get a real snapshot? Because you think about sex binding globulin hormone and some of these other issues that stem from, excess body fat. And maybe, if you were 12% body fat, this would your blood work would look a lot more favorable than at 22% body fat. So I wonder for women, if they're coming into menopause, lifting weights, being strong, eating protein, doing all the other things, if the effects are diminished opposed from, I haven't done any of this stuff, now all of a sudden, the hormone cascade of, decreasing, and now I'm trying to save myself by jumping into these, finally taking advice that they should have been taking 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I would say we know it's never too late. But man, if those women, like I got into strength training when I was 41, 42. I'm 48 now. And I was very, very fit. I mean, you can't do any kind of Ironman events without being very, very fit. But it just wasn't a priority to me. So for sure, I feel like if we can catch, and I hesitate to say this because there's always the women that feel like, well, crap, I got left out. I didn't start until I was postmenopausal. That's still great.
Sure.
We should have started yesterday, but we didn't. And so where are we now? But if we can catch those women in their late 30s, early 40s, before they're starting to hit this perimenopause time of life, which on average is probably around mid 30s or mid 40s, but it could start as early as late 30s. Irregardless, if we can get them in a good program then and get the body fat in check and get their lifestyle in check, because most of these women in this midlife period of time, late 30s into their early 40s, they're dealing with busy careers. They're dealing with teenagers, which is not fun. They're dealing with aging parents. So all of these things that are coming at them, and the female tendency is usually to take care of everyone else. And then once the kids are gone, or you have this little break, or maybe you're getting close to retirement in your 50s, and all of a sudden you're like, maybe I should have put myself first sometimes during this 2 decade of all of these things changing. So I think that's the message that needs to be shared too, is really I always thought it was selfish. I think to put myself first, it's like, no, you put everyone else, you serve everyone else, and then whatever's left over you have for you. But for me now, me personally, and what I try to teach, I don't want, if at all possible, which we only have a say in so much of we can control what we can control with our health. I don't want to be a burden, if at all possible, to my children if I take care of myself now by being really fit and not having to have them maybe take care of me for a decade. If I can prevent it, I will do everything I can.
Yeah, I'll tape a brick to the accelerator, set the car on fire, and drive down the street before I let that shit happen.
I know.
Yeah, no, I like the, was it last year or 2 years ago, Adil Khan had a conference here in Austin for life extension. It was his Eterna company, and they got up and talked about like our genetics will technically last us to about 120 years. The problem is if we can live to be 120, but nobody wants to be 120 because that's old as fuck.
Yeah.
And how do you beat all-cause mortality and these things and aging? And so the message was like, how do you freeze your aging, let's say in your 40s or 50s, and basically be able to live? I mean, I would live to 120 if I could physically be like I am now, so 120, and then just like take a dirt nap. But I think you get to the point where, you're no longer useful and you kind of become useless and feeble, and like that is no way to live. So I can't imagine the desire to live past that and not be capable. So I'm hoping that the day that I'm not, I can just take that accelerator to the ground and just take off, and hopefully we get the cops chasing me and I can shoot some guns at them and they'll end me. I'd rather go out in a fucking blaze of glory than like there's no way to.
Little Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to get to Valhalla, dying like an old man in a warm bed. So, I have never, it's fascinating, just like having daughters and reading books and like trying to understand like a little bit of like female psyche. Like women subscribe to safety. the idea of like feeling safe and like feeling like they're in a group, and people like this idea of safety has never dawned on me as I played in the NFL for 10 years, and just in my life, like safety has never been a major concern. And so it's pretty fascinating, like having daughters and a wife and being married and like realizing that like feeling safe and safety is a massive thing. Whereas like for men, like that is not something that necessarily, or at least the men I'm around, it isn't necessarily something on the front of our mind. So, I mean, and I'm sure the reason part of your success is women feel safe. They feel like they're, that instead of somebody telling them like, you're just being crazy. Like, this is all in your head. Like this, something is wrong. And like, there's other women that are helping me kind of navigate this thing, which I think is so important. I think everybody has the desire. Like, I think everybody should have access to this stuff and everybody should be fit. The issue becomes so many people are resistant to it because, one, it's hard, and two, it takes time, and people are impatient. And I think, the iPhone generation that we become, where everything is just so instant. I mean, do you remember when dial-up internet, and you'd have to sit there for like seeing like the page load, and it would take like 30 seconds. Yeah. It would take like 30 seconds to load a page, and you just kind of hung out and waited. Now, if I got to a website and the page doesn't load immediately, I click out because I think something's wrong. And I think that's just a great indicator of where we are. But realizing that strength training and health and wellness, all this stuff is one, it's a lot easier if you start this fight early. And if you're in this fight, it's going to take a long time. Like there's no, like people ask me, how long does it take to get strong? And I'm like, that is the riddle of the Sphinx. I mean, it takes an entire lifetime. I've been doing this every single day since I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
And like, how do you hack that? Like you can't, like, there's no way to be like, like it just takes time and effort. It's one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. And he,
me too.
He talks about how long would it take to go through that wall? I mean, and he took a little bit out, time and pressure. It's the study of geology. It's the same as strength training, and same with all this stuff. So I think the fact that you've, created a really safe message that resonates with women is obviously the messaging is incredible for, just allowing women to go into a safe space where they feel that they can get better. And I think for men, that's a good thing, because we have to interact with women, and that kind of hopelessness of like, I don't know what's happening to me, I don't know how to fix it. Like that's not something that men want to deal with. And so the fact that there's somebody that's kind of setting a flare up and helping these ladies I think it's incredible.
Yes, thank you. It's been a wild journey. For sure. So
if there was one piece of fitness advice, and even though we've talked about this, I think like I always think on these podcasts, like what's a great takeaway? Like what's that one piece of fitness advice that you would want to give women? I mean, obviously you talked about strength training. You've railed a little bit against the cardio stuff. I mean, for you as a former triathlete, that cardio bunny idea where I can go all day, but I'm not strong. And, I'm sure realizing that like if you had done more strength training when you were doing the aerobic stuff, maybe you might not have run into the same knee issues. But then again, it's like, how much time do you really have to train? I mean, between the swim, the bike, and I've worked with people that are super into triathletes or triathlons, the amount of time that they have that they just dedicate to their sport, like strength training becomes just like another thing where you're like, fuck, how much more time do I have to spend into this?
Yeah.
So,
I would say, honestly, it's going to be so boring, but all or nothing approach needs to be gone for good, because it is the consistency of daily habits that will get these women results. And so I try to say, dig in this for the long haul, and you're never getting off this train. So don't think about it. This is your train that you're on for the rest of your life. And if you just show up, and it's the same thing, consistency matters with nutrition, and consistency matters with getting results in the gym. It's constantly the start stop, or I didn't do this perfect, so then I'm going to pull back and try again on Monday, or I'm just going to kind of do this over here and then this over here and then this over here. And I wonder why nothing is working and things aren't really tying together. I've now had, I think, 20,000 of these women go through my nutrition courses. One of my courses, I offer 3. And all the time I'm like, there's nothing magic in this course. I'm literally not selling you anything that's like, I can change your body in 4 weeks or make you lose this or whatever. I'm like, tuck in for the long haul. And if you're in it for this game and you want to see this 90-year-old self that can not need help going up and down stairs and can still be having a great quality of life, all it is going to take is you sticking on this train. Just keep doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'll get asked all the time, like, oh, for sure you never eat like desserts or whatever. All the time, but in moderation. So I figured out, I know what's in the content of my foods. I know how to keep myself pretty weight stable. And when women wonder, well, how long is it going to take until I see results? Like you said, I'm like, well, it took me years, not weeks, not months, to change my physique to where I am right now. And as you said, it's a daily process of refining, maintaining, whatever it is, of just trying to keep up with that. Simple, but man, is there power in just that? Because every day there's testimonials in one of my groups that's just like, nothing worked for me. Nothing worked. And I'm like, well, I didn't sell you. There's no supplement. There's no like eliminating of a food group. There's nothing other than bringing it back to what we already know, having a good community of women that support each other and that really are learning together. And it's a safe space, getting the good education, having good programming, putting it all together.
Hold on. Oh shit, I kicked out my cord. Hold on. Oh yeah, sorry, I kicked out my cord. Where does confidence fit into this? I mean, like, you think about like bravado and confidence as women get into this kind of midlife, kind of menopausal deal. I mean, I'm sure that like the hormones that are associated with making a woman feel like a woman are all of a sudden now decreasing. And that kind of takes a big hit into the confidence where like, I don't feel like myself anymore. So as they come into this, like, how do you kind of manage that piece of like helping them be more confident, more comfortable in their bodies and helping them kind of like navigate this?
I think it's good when they come in and they see, it's just like teenagers with peers. It's adult peers in this group and they see all of these other women. And it's one thing when I'm saying it, it's another thing when somebody in the group's saying it. Because for me, it may look, oh, well, okay, Hailey, whatever. Yeah, sure, it's easy for you, but, I'm not the same, whatever. And they see all of these women that are just like them and they're getting results. I think adding strength training in is such a powerful tool because forever we've always, and I say this, and the majority of women that come to me want some kind of body composition change. So it's still the conversation. It's still important to a lot of women coming in, but we always were just kind of like, oh, well, my confidence comes from being really small. I can just lose more weight. I can fit into this. I can be a size, whatever your dream is, insert the numbers. And I can just always like, this is how I find my confidence. When we're shifting and we say, hey, let's get you strong in the gym. Do something, do your first pull-up unassisted. Do your first push-up unassisted. Put a barbell on your back for the first time. These are big confidence boosters that women never thought that they could really envision themselves doing. So I think that adds a lot. There also, confidence is going to come from having some of those small wins, but most women are still just intimidated to get into the gym. And so I always say, go in and do one piece, use one piece of equipment. And that's all, anything new that you try. Do whatever else you were doing in a gym, but try one piece of equipment every week and just do it every time you go to the gym. Do the leg extension, get comfortable with it. Pretty soon after a week or two, you're going to be like, oh, I know how to work this and I'm not intimidated by it anymore. Okay, cool. Now go try the hack squat. Get used to it. Maybe get somebody from the gym to show you how to use it. Get comfortable with that for 2 weeks. Don't do anything else. Go back and do everything else you're comfortable with. So they're just starting to do one thing instead of being like, well, now I have to be comfortable in the entire gym setting. And there's a lot of people in there. And I don't want to be the one that doesn't know what they're doing. Even though I still screw up all the time. I was just in a gym and I could not figure out when I was at Brooke's retreat in Costa Rica, and I could not figure out how to work this one machine. And I fiddled with it and I messed around, and I'm just like, this is not a big deal. But when you're learning, you feel like all of the eyes are on you and you feel like everyone's paying attention, when in reality, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, they're too busy worried about themselves.
Yeah, like I never come home and be like, oh, that person in the gym that couldn't figure out this equipment for 2 seconds, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So I think those are little things. It's empowering to have a group of women that are going through the same thing. It's empowering to go in there and have my app pop up, or whatever app you're using, and have it say what you lifted for that day. When you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that. Hailey, I did a deadlift for the first time for my body weight, like whatever it is a huge win. And you have this community cheering you on. And that is something that is priceless. The programs are good. I would say I have the best programs out there because I didn't write half of them. I had incredible experts that are the best that I sought out and asked them to help me with a lot of these programs. And so programming is one for sure, but a community that is safe and that is cheering everyone else. It's the one thing that I'm most proud of. That would be it.
Nice. So for women that are kind of high achievers, right? There's this idea of like perfection that they're, constantly striving. That's something that I've realized with daughters where like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect. And I think that that messaging is coming through. And I'm sure like that's something you battle with, where if I can't follow this exactly, I don't want to follow it. Like, how do you manage that messaging for women that are kind of in this idea of everything has to be perfect? And unfortunately, in strength training, or let's say you go to a commercial gym, or maybe you train in a small group setting that might not have access to everything. Like, are there pivots in there? Like, how do you manage that piece?
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of that comes down to education and pointing it back. I mean, it's really, it's interesting how many people, how many women will message my support team and ask for permission to like change an exercise to something else. And I'm like, you got it all in you. You've got it in you. Like, turn it around and start to really trust yourself. But what I mentioned before, the all or nothing, like the type A's, it's gotta go out. And obviously you've seen my, Instagram and my name. If I could also add in life happens, goes with the brand. Life happens. Like, if you are waiting for perfection and waiting to do this right, you're waiting your entire life, and you're missing out on all of these benefits that you can get by doing it 80%. So you miss a day. Your parents get sick, and it's empowering when women start to be like, okay, I can go on vacation for a week, and they think they're going to lose all their muscle because they don't have a gym. It doesn't work that way. And so I think that education piece is really coming back to it, but having to dial back and say, it does not have to look like I set up these programs. If you can't do a superset, all is not lost. If you can't do a superset in a busy gym, get into a straight set and work to effort and do it the best way that you can with the situation that you have. That's all we can do. And if you're doing that, you're going to get results. You just will. I've seen it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So you have to pivot, and you have to just adapt and be like, life is going to throw you everything it's going to throw at you, whether you're super organized and you think you can control what's happening, still going to have a lot of things that knock you off your feet. So know how to pivot and adapt. And that's why I have a clinical psychologist that is on my staff for my courses, and we have a whole module on this. And it's the thing that I would say most women push to the side, and they're like, oh, not as many people show up for this Zoom. Not as many questions come in for the behavior and habit change and psychology module. But it's the thing that is going to allow you to do everything else better or to keep with your results. So it's really one of the biggest pieces that I think isn't the shiny object behavior change. That's not fun. But it's the thing that, again, another piece that will absolutely move the dial. And if you want to know how these women that have physiques that you want, they are straight up pivoting and as consistent as they can be in the situation that they have. That's it.
How do you fight against, I always love when women are like, I put on muscle so easily. I don't want to lift heavy weights. I don't want to get bulky. And I've heard that over and over again. And I'm like, I've spent my entire life trying to get bulky, and it's not as easy as you think. So how do you fight against that one?
Yeah, I mean, we still hear that. And I will say this. If someone has a higher body fat percentage and they do put on a little bit of muscle, they think it's all of the muscle that is to blame. But usually if we dial in the nutrition, then we can offset what they're feeling as far as looking bulky or feeling bulky. But I always say, come to the gym and be a fly on the wall when one of my menopausal women, which is all I work with in person, is dead on the floor after a session trying to just build muscle. It is so hard, especially post-menopausal. Like, it's a little bit easier if you're even in that peri stage still, but post-menopausal, I've never seen a female that's like, I put on so much muscle. I've got to pull back. You might have some outliers for sure. There's always going to be somebody that's like, but I do. The majority of women are never, ever, ever going to face that. They're just not.
GLP-1s are massive right now. I mean, we've done podcasts about them. I get probably asked almost every day about something about GLP-1s. And this is, and I work predominantly with men, but we do have ladies. How has that kind of reshaped the fitness landscape for what you're doing with and the rise of, things like retatrutide and these, triple antagonists? I mean, it's pretty interesting with the amount of information and how people are using them.
Yeah. So, I actually bring this into my courses too. So I have one of my collaborators is one of the leading obesity. She owns an obesity clinic in New York City. Just wrote a fantastic book, but all she does is GLP-1s. And I bring her in because I know a lot of women coming into this course are thinking about it or on a GLP-1. And I will say this. There have been women that have completely changed their life by being on a GLP-1. Hands down, it's been the best thing. I've had clients that my job as a coach, as a trainer, is to support whatever decision. So I would never push one on. I'm just like, cool, tell me what you're going to do. I'll give you my advice, but you make the call and then I'm here to support you. So I've had clients that we could not move the needle at all. And they went on a GLP-1 and just like clockwork, tick, 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 like pounds started coming off safely. They had me, we were giving them the education. We were strength training. So we knew that we were preserving that muscle mass. But on the flip side, so I think it's really beneficial. A lot of women, they have confidence now to walk into the gym. They're wearing a tank top for the first time in their life and they feel good. So it has had a massive impact. On the flip side, you have women that are taking it that are already really thin. And the danger of that, again, is loss of bone, which I think is even more important than loss of muscle. Because that frailty is fatal. Being fragile is fatal in our last decade of life, where they're probably not thinking about that right now. They love what they look like. They love fitting into X clothes or being this on the scale. But so there's always a pendulum of pros and cons with anything. But I've seen it change for the right person. It is life-changing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you're making this distinction between muscle and bone. It's next to impossible to carry a high amount of muscle unless you have the bone in the frame. You think about Wolff's Law, bones are going to react to not only stress, but muscle. And so the idea of like, if you want to fight sarcopenia and you want to fight loss of, bone density, you have to put the bones under stress and you have to gain muscle. I mean, it's impossible to carry muscle unless you have a substantial frame. So it's interesting that those two, and I think the narrative has changed. Like before, women had this idea of lifting heavy weights would somehow turn them into a man. Oh, I don't want to be manly. I don't want this. And I know, growing up as an athlete and then, going to college, I always appreciated all the female athletes that were jacked and in good shape. I mean, I lifted weights and I was big and strong too. I kind of appreciated the fact that girls put the same dedication in. So it's always weird for me where I see guys online be like, oh, that girl looks like a man. I'm like, I don't know. She looks better than what you look like. I mean, that's embarrassing. I mean, it's just such a different mindset for, how do I say this? I'm constantly let down by men who aren't, what's the word? Encouraging of women lifting weights. I've been trying to encourage women to lift weights for years because I feel like it makes them the best looking version of themselves. I'm like, yeah. And it's kind of a weird thing, but I tend not to associate with guys like that. So I wonder how you kind of fight that, because I'm sure you have women that, want to get into this to be healthier and stronger, and they're so excited about it and they don't feel the support from their husband. And that's a weird one for me. I'm like, I don't know those guys. And if I did, I would fucking belittle them and tell them hey dude, you need to go, if your wife's stronger than you, or you're necessarily not encouraging her to do this, that's more of a you problem, and you heaping that on your wife is probably not a good thing to do. Yeah,
I agree. 100%. It doesn't come up often, but it does come up in some groups. And, we just try to support women that might not have support with their spouse or their significant other. But yeah, it's interesting to me when I hear that, when it's the opposite. Keep your wife strong.
Yeah.
Keep your wife strong.
Yeah, no, it seems easy to me. I mean, everybody just seems to get healthier. I mean, if you think about muscle being the greatest indicator for health and longevity, and fat being extremely oxidative and muscle being extremely insulin sensitive, the more muscle you carry in relation to body fat proves everything from metabolic flexibility to health. I mean, it's just looking at blood work and working with, athletes and even regular people over many, many years. It's pretty apparent that the more muscle you carry in relation to body fat, the better everything else looks, both mentally, physically, emotionally. And it's and when I do run into people that do carry, a high amount of body fat, the emotional problems associated with it are really, really, prevalent. So I'm like, I think you could probably solve a little bit of this if we just died it down. But then the other thing we run into is, sometimes people, and I'm sure you've run into this, where everybody thinks, I'll just look better if I lose 5 pounds of fat. We've taken that and done that with people where they've lost 5-10 pounds of fat and it doesn't look good. And I'm like, dude, you probably would have been better if we tried to gain 5 pounds of muscle than to lose 5 pounds of fat. So one of the things, if you could give every woman over 35 a simple 3-step framework to thrive in midlife, what would that framework be? And I know we've talked about it, but just to kind of button this thing up, throw a stake in the ground. I would
say, don't sweat the small stuff. And by that, I mean, I'm inundated and my team is inundated all the time with women that are like, but tell me exactly how many calories to eat before. What's my protein to carb ratio? Like, what do I need to eat before the gym? And then what if I go after? And I'm like, take all of that off the table. Take it all off. Take whatever you're hearing and lift weights and be okay with pivoting when things don't go your way. Eat a well-balanced meal multiple times a day. Ideally, you're not going hours and hours without eating. And really know your why. If you know, hey, I'm working for the future 90-year-old self, then all of these decisions help you stay on the path. It's not just a phase. Like weightlifting and eating it's not a phase. None of this is going away. The basic stuff is never going away. So don't get so caught up on, I need to do this many HIIT sessions a week. I need to do this much lifting. I have to eat right around this. The results will come by doing the basics most of the time. That's it. Get in there, do a program that you like. Don't sweat the small stuff. Ideally, you're doing strength training and different forms of cardio, preferably high intensity and some lower intensity. Find what works for you, know your why, and literally you're not ever getting off the train. You're on the strength train for life. Nobody's getting a ticket off until we have to.
Until it all ends. That was great.
Yes.
If people want to learn more or they're excited about the programs, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Or how can they find them?
Okay, you just cut out. I didn't hear anything you said.
I said, that's weird. If people want to get more information or they're excited about a program, what's the best way to for them to check it out?
My website, HaileyHappensFitness.com. At Hailey Happens Fitness is on my Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So pretty much it's all the same. But it is a great group of women. I would say, as I said before, I have really good programs and a heck of a lot of support, which goes a long way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Power Athlete Radio. This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market. We've built an online training business by partnering with Train Heroic to deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Hammer, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best training tech in the business, head to trainheroic.com/powerathletehq. And now back to the show. Hey there, Power Athlete Nation. Big shout out to all the heavy hitters who stuck around till the final whistle. If you've been soaking in the knowledge bombs and epic tales we've been dropping for free, here's your chance to be a game changer. Swing by ko-fi.com/powerathlete and toss a few bucks our way to keep the podcast fueled and firing on all cylinders. That's ko-fi.com/powerathlete. Your support makes a difference. See ya.